So B2B marketer with a sign, snow shoveler, B2B Ross, fruit slasher, and now ABM with LinkedIn ads expert Tim Davidson. Welcome.
I don't know what to say. Snow shoveler, that's a new one. I like that one. I'll take that. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Great to have you on. I was thinking about it today. I was like, what has Tim done on LinkedIn recently that I've seen on my feed? And those were the things that came to my mind. Well, look, it's great to have you on, Tim. I suppose my knowledge of you is that first I watch your videos on LinkedIn, you know, from a B2B perspective, talking about events, talking about different B2B concepts. And then recently your venture into LinkedIn ads. So that was probably the spark for me to reach out and get in touch and get your thoughts. I'm always looking for people with interesting opinions on LinkedIn ads. So it was great to see you move into that sphere. First thing I want to do is get to know a little bit about you. So let's start off away from the marketing world, and especially away from B2B marketing world. Can you tell us something about you that's nothing to do with marketing?
Nothing to do with marketing. So I guess as a background, I actually went to school for zoology. And so I always wanted to do marketing, or not marketing. I wanted to be like a trainer. I wanted to be like an animal trainer. And what sparked that was actually at a zoo one day when I was a kid, and there was a hyena, and they had like the trainer there, and they were just, the hyena was like just doing everything the trainer was saying. It was like, oh, this is crazy. Not to say I wanted to be a hyena trainer, but there's lions, like whatever it was. I wanted to do something with animals. I ended up not doing that, but I did become a dog trainer. And like as a part-time when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, in between, like I was doing like sales jobs, got like let go, but I was also not experienced enough to do marketing. Like I was, it's like that time period, we don't have any experience and no one wants to hire you for marketing, but they'll hire you for sales, and I'm terrible at sales. So I started to become a dog trainer. And I don't do it as like a paying gig anymore, but it helps. When we got a puppy, about a year and a half ago, it definitely helped. And I still love doing that stuff.
That's interesting. There's absolutely no relation of how I can put that to B2B marketing whatsoever.
I'm training people to buy.
That's true.
Isn't it the same thing?
This is true. That's interesting. Yeah. So I grew up on a farm. And so we've always had dogs, especially for sheep, so all the cool stuff where dogs are able to run into a field and round up 100 sheep in a couple of seconds. My dad was an amateur trainer at that type of stuff. So I know a little bit about it, but I'd imagine your knowledge is much more technical than mine.
Hey.
So if you weren't doing LinkedIn ads, would you be training dogs, or would you be doing something else?
No, I wouldn't be doing that. My idea of what I would be doing probably changes a lot. I will say two things I'm very fascinated with are like dinosaurs history, like that history. I think that's just very interesting to me. So I would love to like just dig up fossils. I think that'd be a lot of fun for me. On the other side, I love space, and I love anything to do with just learning about what's out there past the Earth. So to answer your question, it'd probably be digging for fossils. I think that would just be easier because the space part, they're just what I want to get to is like way beyond like what we have technologically right now. But fossil digging, that I think I would probably end up doing that. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Is that kind of like there's a high barrier to entry to that right now, or is it something that can be like democratized to become a more hobbyist type thing to do?
It can be a hobby. So I've done a little bit of research into it, and my wife's cousin's actually going to school for paleontology. So I've been digging into it more there. There's not a lot of money in it. That's the issue. Is so like I would have to have some sort of other support system if I was going to do that a lot. Yeah. There is money in it if you like find a very put together T-Rex and you sell it 5 years in auction after that, but it's not a lot of money in it for most.
It's cool though that you say that, because generally when I speak to the people who have interesting takes on marketing, they always have a completely different interest that keeps them ticking along. I think that's nearly a necessity for people that have any sort of different outlook on marketing or different approach, is they have just a completely different interest. So cool to hear that. So quick pace changer, and just to put it back into the context of B2B marketing and LinkedIn, but on a similar mind frame, keep your options open, keep your answers open here. If you had unlimited budget, what marketing would you do? Can be tactic, strategy, channel, whatever.
Unlimited budget. It's maybe a cop-out answer, but I'd probably do a Super Bowl ad, or even, I don't know. If you're talking about unlimited budget, I would do all the big ones. Like March Madness is coming up right now. I'd do all the big sports kind of, the big ads there. But then also just put a bunch of money in the distribution behind it of, how do you create more clips for social, and how do we, tie that together with everything else. I would probably get a bunch of like nostalgic actors and actresses and things like that as well. But I think my stance has actually changed on this, on the Super Bowl ad. I think that's just that one place where there's this like stigma of like, oh, this is a huge brand because of it. And I think if I had an budget, I would do that. And I would just do it wildly crazy. And just the aftermath of it would be crazy too.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of, I wouldn't say I'm a big fan of Super Bowl ads in general, but I'm a big fan of, there's usually one or two that like make it 10x worth everyone else's return. And the one that stood out for me, everyone's talking about, is Kanye. And it was just because it was a pattern interrupt. I don't know if he meant it like that. I don't know if it's just what like if he just done it off the cuff. But if he meant it, I think it was genius, just because of the nature of what it was.
100%. Or, the other thing I was just thinking about is maybe like, this is more of my world, I get, or B2B marketing world. But I would just hire a bunch of people like guerrilla marketing and just be everywhere with signs and just like be obnoxious at every event. Just had tons of people walking around being funny and like creating content. I don't know how that would look. There's a lot of chaos there, but I'm just thinking like, if I have unlimited budget, like, can I get an ad on the freaking spaceship?
I always come up with something different when I'm asking someone about it, but take over the sky, whether it's drones, whether it's whatever, take over the sky. It's the biggest, most clear real estate we have. But anyway, so there's where your spaceships could come in, maybe. Cool. All right, nice. So tell us about B2B Rizz. So I was actually quite surprised to see that you went down specifically the LinkedIn route. So I want to get your thoughts on a little bit more about it and kind of why it began. So it's pretty simple, like what you said. B2B Rizz is basically a LinkedIn ads consultancy where it's just me, one person show. But I do like to focus on the ABM side. And when I say that, people have different definitions of ABM. I just mean a more targeted approach to LinkedIn. As an example, like if most companies want to target, an employee size plus industries and titles, or, whatever that persona is. The industries have a lot of flaws in there. So I like to, use account lists and then just be much more targeted in that approach. And how I got there. So really, I went down a LinkedIn ads route because I worked at a performance marketing agency for 4 years, worked with a bunch of software companies, and did a bunch of hiring. And one of the things that was very hard to find was someone that had LinkedIn ads experience. A lot of people have Google ads, a lot of people have Facebook ads experience. Not many people have LinkedIn ads experience. So I saw a gap there. And a lot of companies that, you talk to just have like just really bad setups and then just everything that is just really bad. Just no one understands how to do it. So there was a gap there. And I also just was doing it for 4 years. That was like where I focused a lot of my time. And so I became, a big believer in it. And then the other side of it is a lot of my content's on LinkedIn. So it just seemed like a great fit just because essentially, how can I just hone in my whole world into LinkedIn right now? Is that a bad thing? Maybe. It could be, because if LinkedIn shut down, I'm screwed. But at some point, it seems like a great place to hang out. So I figured, why not? So basically, before I started, I went away for a year, took a travel year, worked at LinkedIn before that, but took a travel year and came back. And I was still surprised when I was going away. I was like, there's an opportunity there for LinkedIn, like people in between, agencies, consultants, whatever, people who know what they're doing. I went away and came back and I was still shocked at how big the opportunity was. I thought the gap did close a little bit, but there's still loads of opportunity there. So great to have you. Great to have you in the industry, Tim.
Seems like it's small world.
Yeah. Everyone knows each other as well. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And everyone critiques each other. It's a good place to be for LinkedIn right now. Cool. So ABM specifically is like, for LinkedIn, it's been a no-brainer for me years ago when people were starting to talk about ABM much more commonly, and you were bringing in other platforms like Demandbase, 6 Sense, all these types of things. I was a little bit confused as to why people were bypassing LinkedIn specifically as a kind of a standalone solution. You seem to be of the same opinion. So for you, what separates LinkedIn as a standalone from the other platforms? Or to put it in another context, where does LinkedIn fit in?
If you think about it, the only reason LinkedIn really fits into it is obviously, your buyers are there, but also it's the only platform outside of like buying a 90K platform. It's the only free outside of ad spend. It's the only free platform where you can type in a company and target just that company. It's the only thing you can do it. You can't do it on Facebook. You can't. You used to in like 2013, 17. You just can't do it anywhere else. And so, to your point, why are people passing it by? I don't know. It's just to the earlier conversation. I don't think people understand. I just don't think people understand what you can actually do in LinkedIn. And the other side of it though is I've used a lot of those ABM platforms. I've used 4 or 5 of them now, and even though you have those platforms, the place where you still saw the best place to distribute the content and the best place where you saw the results was still LinkedIn. It was just, you put ABM platform in the middle, and then it was just like another thing that had to go through, just because that's what people thought that's the only way you can create an account list, which makes no sense. You could just use a $70 a month data provider to create the account list now. There's still benefits to those, don't get me wrong, but you don't need them to start.
I think there's been a shift from where people thought to do ABM, you initially need the provider, and then LinkedIn ads is an addition, where in reality it's the provider. It has probably too much of the space there. There's a lot you can do with LinkedIn, and it's getting better. Company engagement report, I seen even Dream Data released for free. They're obviously a provider, but they released a free solution yesterday, which just makes ABM so effective and easy for free, aside from ad spend. So there's a lot you can do, and I love the approach, and I love the clarity of the cut you've put in.
Yeah, it's not like they don't have their place. They definitely do. It's just the big issue you always see is, like you said, I need to do ABM. CEO or you yourself is like, all right, let's get an ABM platform. That's like the first thing you do. That's ABM. Now you can do ABM, right? No, that's how you fail, because now you have this $90,000, finance is looking at this $90,000 that you just spent all this money on. So now you have to figure out what resources you need to make that work, which the ABM platforms, again, you're just using that to go to LinkedIn. And at the end of the day, maybe you do display ads, which I don't know how many people I've talked to, just they get like stuck in the display ad part and then they just shut it off because it doesn't do anything for them. You just don't need it. And that's when you stop doing ABM, because you just spent all this money on something that you have to now use because you spent all this time and money on it. And the onboarding takes forever. There's all those things too. It just gives you bad habits, I would say.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Once you have you're using LinkedIn for free and you're spending money on the ads and you're seeing some kind of traction, you got sales and marketing working together, awesome. Use ABM, go get an ABM platform, because you've already seen you're seeing this traction. Use it for scale, but you definitely should not use it before, because you just won't do ABM again.
So in that vein, then, if someone is starting off on LinkedIn, right? So they have 10K a month, they're thinking about ABM. What would be your kind of maybe 4 or 5 step approach for them to start ABM on LinkedIn?
First thing I do is just, all right, how do we build out that account list? That's always it's going to be the basis of everything if you think about it. And how to do that is you kind of, ideally you have, enough customer data and even close loss or just opportunity data if you don't have enough customer data. So you can go into your CRM and look at what those indicators are to make an account list. So let's just say it's employee size or in industries. Then you use a data provider to create a list. From there, then you want to figure out, depending on that account list is, because if you only have 10K a month, you need to probably prioritize essentially. Now what you don't want to do is have, just 10 accounts, because at the end of the day, you're still dependent on timing. So you want to find a good average of, good amount of accounts versus not. And then you can start advertising to them on LinkedIn. And, it doesn't just need to be ABM. You should definitely still be doing like retargeting without maybe that account list to find new accounts, because those account lists are never perfect, never, ever perfect. And you'll be able to find someone with like retargeting.
They don't match perfectly either.
No. Especially if you're going for like those enterprise accounts where it's like Amazon and they have 50 different departments and like there's Amazon AWS and small, like there's so many different things that you're just gonna get messed up with. Even Walmart, they have a technology sector. It's like the weirdest thing. Yeah. But yeah, you want to start with that account list, number one, and then figure out everything else after that. But the account list is going to be your starting point by far.
Some people get confused by the type of approach on LinkedIn. So obviously there's one-to-one, there's one-to-few, one-to-many, where I feel that one-to-one can be done. It's difficult. One-to-few it's also quite difficult, but can be done. One-to-many is probably the core spot for LinkedIn. Where do you sit in that?
I see it every for all. I would say, to your point, you need all. Not need all. You should start with one-to-many because, again, the timing part, like you can't force people to buy. I don't care how good your ads are. You just can't force them to buy. So you still need enough counts and people to get some traction, or you're just gonna get shut off by your boss. But I also, don't get me wrong, I do like one-to-one as well. And it doesn't have to be just this very crazy, let's create 50 different assets just for this account. It can be just as simple as, an ad, messaging, and maybe even like a landing page with using like a website personalization for it. Because you're still going to see, really good engagement and click-through rates and getting people to actually stop and scroll from the feed. But yeah, to your point, you got to start with one-to-many and then drive into the other avenues.
Got it. So I feel like this seems like a political question these days, where people are either in one court or the other. But measurement, attribution, right? There seems to be, on LinkedIn specifically, there seems to be two fields, right? There's the old-fashioned kind of B2B field, or maybe old-fashioned is a bit harsh, but in terms of last click attribution, you can attribute everything from LinkedIn, and you should be to a certain extent. And then there's the new school, which is more demand gen, brand, everything can't be measured. You should accept that and put a lot of your time and money into the idea and the thought and whatever else. Where do you fit in?
Ideally, you can go the brand awareness route, because there's going to be people that, whether they see your ad or not, or whether they see your ad and convert on that, and then they go to your website, there's always going to be that 100%. And ideally you can just do that. And then, if you get, last click conversions, that's awesome. That's added on. That looks great. You have the, how did you hear about us? They say LinkedIn, that's awesome. Like, is it LinkedIn organic? Is it ads? I don't know, but like, it looks great for that. Ideally you can do that. Managing clients, that's hard. That's hard to justify. That's very, very hard to justify. So you need a mix of both and having those conversations, because you do need some direct attribution, or you should get shut off very, very fast. Especially like for us who are, outside consultants, we have our fees added to that as well. So like it looks even worse. I don't think there's a good answer, to be honest, because even if you do track it, Hockey Stack and Meta, or not Metadata. Sorry, what was the one you said earlier?
Dream Data.
Yeah. Dream Data. Hockey Stack, Dream Data. Those are great. for helping with measurement, but there's still going to be those things that you can't measure. And like, it just becomes a battle. Everyone obviously has this question. I don't have a good answer because I don't think there is ever going to be a good answer. I think it's really, really hard because there's so many things you just can't track, but there's also things you can track. And at the end of the day, you need to track something. You can't just sit there and not track anything. It's not possible.
It would be nice,
Oh, yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think it's going to get worse. I don't think it's going to get better.
Sure.
Like especially in Europe, we have GDPR. Lately, we've had, I can't remember, something similar. But it's just more and more insight is getting taken away, and I feel like it's probably a global movement. So yeah, like I'm kind of similar to you. I track as much as I can track, but I've kind of come full circle where when I started doing what I was doing, I had to track everything, and it upset me if I couldn't. Whereas I've come to the other side of really it's your inputs. If your inputs are good enough and you've learned from your mistakes, you can track so much, and then you're just going to have to accept that the rest is down to good marketing and intuition. Look, it leaves a wide open space for people like ourselves, consultants, which is always good, but it's a difficult place to be, especially when you do have that client pressure.
Yeah. And when things are going good, it's easier to talk about. It's just when things are going bad and you're seeing downward things, whether it's in the business or just, performance on LinkedIn ads or whatever it is, it's harder to talk about because then there's like, all right, I need to cut this budget. We got to find out what, like, we can track this or you can't track this. Yeah. See ya. Like, that's just how it works. So you need to try to, future proof yourself, but you also know the best marketing isn't trackable. So it's really, really hard.
Yeah. I seen a quote the other day. I can't remember who said it, but it was something along the lines of how many marketers have been built off great product market fit. And I was like, yeah, it's true. 100%. It's really true. The really good ones are the ones who have been able to make something work without product market fit. Those are the best ones, but you don't always hear about them. So just veering back a little bit to LinkedIn ads. So we mentioned a couple of data providers and ABM providers. Are there any platforms that you work with? I know you do a little bit with Hockey Stack, but are there any platforms you work with or have worked with maybe in the past in Directive that complement LinkedIn ads? So for number one, for people who have the money to do it, and then for number two, those who are on a budget.
I mean, if you have money to do it, like UserGems is a good one because UserGems essentially they track, let's just say I'm at a company and then I leave and I use your platform. I go to another company, they track that so they know, all right, it's time to reach out to that person because they're at a new company. And what happens when there's a new VP of marketing, a CMO, they got everything, they get new tech and they bring in what they know works. So using something like that helps you get good wins on the advertising side because you could basically, import contacts and then start advertising to them. So I call it like triggers, not intent. It's like triggers, like some triggers I've used in the past that are really, really good are like new funding, new hires, just because I know that's a good time for someone to like hire an agency or like bring in new technology. So if you have something like that, I guess the answer would be like some sort of trigger or intent data for that. The attribution is also helpful. I don't know how helpful sometimes because it's more of like just, not justifying, but understanding more. It's not, I wouldn't say it like helps you. It does. It's hard for me to understand that.
It's also more helpful for some businesses, So some businesses can like get pretty close to direct attribution and others just impossible. But I like the UserGems one. I haven't actually used that, but the way you think about triggers makes a lot of sense. I've moved a little away from intent as well because just what is intent? Who defines what intent is? So I've kind of moved a little bit away from that into even with LinkedIn, rather than from your prospect into your retargeting audience. What's the trigger that got you there? And that generally gives a better idea of how valuable the audience is, whether it's a website visit, a lead form open, ad interaction. They're all different types of triggers, but they're definitely not intent.
100%. Yeah. Another one is website personalization. So like just helping out. So like whatever landing page you send to or like page on your website, just having like website personalization. I've seen better conversion rates. Those are always good. Again, this is if you have like, good cash. All those things are not cheap.
So a big part of what you do is your content on LinkedIn. A lot of people love it. You constantly get great engagement from it. But the reason being is it's creative. It's not what people are doing on LinkedIn. I'm fully responsible for some of the boring content and kind of long form content that goes out on LinkedIn. It's what I do. I'll probably stay doing it, but I love what you bring. So obviously things like chopping fruit, B2B Ross, all those type of things. So it involves a creative process, and I'm always interested in people's creative process. So for LinkedIn, for the videos and for the concepts you come up with, do you have a specific creative process?
I wouldn't say it's like an exact science. I would say that if I think about it though, the creative process, I do a lot of things to be creative. So like go for a run or, work out or just be outside or, walk the dog or whatever. I like to do those things after I'm working on a problem. So like if I'm working on something and then I go and do something that's where I can get my head out of it, I usually come back with a bunch of notes in my phone. So I try to come up with ideas on that. I also just write down any idea I ever have, which usually comes from like real life situations, like, a test on LinkedIn or like something that happens at an event or whatever that looks like. So that's where like the ideas usually come from. Now, how do I, create a video around it? So the fruit cutting thing came from TikTok in the sense that I was noticing I was watching TikTok and there were some videos that I would stop and actually like listen to a story. There's 3 different things. There was one, it was people unboxing stuff and just talking about something. There was one where someone they were cutting a pineapple, but they were talking, they had like an overlay voice. It wasn't like talking about it and cutting it. They were cutting a pineapple, like you just see them cutting it and then they would overlay it with a voice, with their like voice talk story. And then someone else was cooking and telling a story. I essentially just tried all 3. I tried telling a B2B story, cooking, unboxing, and cutting fruit. And cutting fruit worked the best. So I was like, all right, let me just run with that. And so over time, it's evolved with different fruit and cutting utensils and things like that. But now it's just like, all right, here's the topic. Here's the format I know about. It's the fruit or it's the B2B Ross or it's the, whatever that looks like. I've also evolved into like doing things and talking about something. Yeah. So like shoveling snow, creating a shelf. I'm trying to do more of that just because it feels like there's like a storytelling progression thing. I think there's like a progression thing to a story. I don't know. It's weird, but I think there's something there.
There's a progression thing and it's also just a little less awkward or something. It's like,
maybe.
I feel like it's when it's easier to have a difficult conversation with someone when you're driving a car, because you're not looking at them. You're just moving, you're doing things, you're flowing. But it definitely works.
Yeah, that makes sense. So there's not a perfect science, but it's typically like write down any notes I have, try to get my head out of like doing the work as much as possible, which can be hard at times, and then figure out the format.
I think they're all pretty important things for people to think about in B2B, right? So you've called out one, which is being on TikTok and looking at what people are doing, B2C people are doing, and what general just like lifestyle content creators are doing, because they have nailed how to keep attention, So that's number 1. Number 2 is to get out of it. And I think that's a huge one for people in B2B, because you're sucked into your work hours, your day-to-day life, your meetings, whatever, the process that's already been in place. And more often than not, that's where none of you're not going to get any ideas from being in that. So I think being out of that and just taking yourself away from it and doing something different with the problem in the back of your head is probably a good way. And then just, trial. A lot of people in B2B, they're stuck in a certain type of format or template or previous process that needs to be shaken up? So look, you said you didn't have a process, but I'm taking that as a process. Okay, so there's probably a lot of things that marketers don't care about, don't want to hear about. So is there anything that you would absolutely pay for? As something that's really annoying you, something that's you're finding it hard to do your job as a marketer that you would absolutely pay for right now?
Yes. I don't know if it's technically marketers, but messaging or LinkedIn message management, it's an absolute mess in there and I cannot figure it out. And there's no like folder, there's no like good system. I'm trying to figure out a solution for it right now, but it is extremely hard. And you know, at least for a lot of people, their whole business is essentially through LinkedIn. And so I'm missing out on like good conversations in there. I'm missing out on like, you know, just good messages. So I'd 100% pay for something like that. I would 100% pay for, it used to be a product, but it was called Gated. I would 100% pay for something like that for email management. The email, again, is a mess. I would also pay for, what was it called? Something specific on link ads. I think there's products out there. I just don't even know what they are. But like shutting off the weekends type of thing. What do you call that? Yeah, scheduling. Yeah. Like I would 100% pay for that. I think there is tools out there now, but I don't know them.
Yeah, there is. I know a lot of people are still doing it manually. I know personally there's an agency that's part of their day job. Turn on when they get in, turn off when they get out.
Yeah.
So say, for example, we took then, so it's like a all-in messaging platform, right? So it's a LinkedIn messaging organizer, email organizer, or whatever that just gives you what you need. Okay, so that's the product. So now, 2 steps to it. How would you market it? And then how would you sell it?
Ooh. I'm terrible at selling, so this is going to be hard.
We should stick to marketing then.
For marketing, I mean, I'd probably make a phony ad, you know, like, you know, those phony TV commercials of someone pulling out their hair because they all the messages and they're just missing out on so many opportunities.
Slapstick type.
Yeah. Or I just walk through my inbox and be like, look at this. Just missed this. Just this opportunity. Here's a missed opportunity. And I'm sure, you know, all these other business owners are seeing the same thing. Or like, I would also tie it to probably how much time you can save, just like, you know, every other product does it. I think it's one of those problems that everyone has. There's just no solution. And I'm not sure if there is ever going to be a good solution. But I think it'd be easy to sell just because it's a solution everyone wants. And it's just, once you say it, I don't think you need to.
Yeah.
Sell it. I don't think you need to market it. Like once you say it and you can actually show that it's a good product, I think that it's a product that sells itself. Terrible answer, but I think it's the truth.
Usually I bash LinkedIn in some way, shape or form on these interviews. I haven't really so far, so now I'm going to do it. That chat feature has been the same for I don't know how many years. It has not got any better, and the activity is at an all-time high on LinkedIn. It needs to be sorted out. There's so much businesses being run directly from LinkedIn, mine included, and they can make life so much easier. So yeah, there's my LinkedIn bashing for today.
No, it's true. It's true.
I want to ask you one more question, and just to get your thoughts on the future of B2B. I feel you've probably been a leader for a lot of B2B marketers in our industry in what way you're approaching organic content and bringing maybe entertainment to the LinkedIn feed and things like that. Where do you feel the next big thing is? The next big opportunity?
I think everyone's talking about this, unfortunately, but I don't see it being done as well as it could, and I don't have the answer for it either. But I do think the, what do you want to call them? Influencers, creators, however you want to say they are. I think that's still going to be the future. I think I said this last year as well, but it's untapped. And there's obviously many ways to do it, but I think it's going to be much, much bigger. B2C is already killing it with it, right? They've done it. They're always 10 years ahead. It's obviously become the thing. I think that's going to get even bigger in B2B. I just don't know how it's going to look because it is hard to track at some point. There's not as many people. Some people are just really bad at sales. Some people just have, all the same problems with B2C as well. But I think that's really coming. And even just and I think a lot of companies are thinking about it. This year, and I've talked to others that are the same way. This year, you're getting a lot more people asking about influencer partnerships, like a lot more. So I think it's definitely coming top of mind too.
Yeah, it's huge. I think the only kind of threat to that is where it happens. I feel like LinkedIn, from an algorithm point of view, has some people who have a lot of followers and have traditionally, say last year, even had a lot of engagement. I've noticed that a lot of engagement has been cut, and it's been it's been hard for people on LinkedIn. Whereas on Instagram, TikTok, other places, you can still really pump out the impressions, and they're not doing a lot to stop it. So yeah, I agree. I'm interested to see what LinkedIn do, if they double down on it, if they start to encourage it, or if it's something they take away. They've been traditionally good at stopping things that they don't want to be becoming viral. So we'll see.
It might become, and I think the reach has definitely decreased for some. But I don't know, it's still such a small world, B2B. And so a lot of people know each other. And so even they might not get the reach on LinkedIn, and that's fair. It's still more of a qualitative thing. Like, there's going to be different ways to use them, whether it's in the sales process or just as a case study. Like, I think there is definitely different ways to use B2B because it's such a small world.
Yeah.
You don't need if you have a 50K ACV product, you don't need a lot.
No.
You just need them to sell one.
Yeah.
And that pays for everything usually.
Yeah. B2B is about precision. That's all it is.
Yep,
it's different. And I think, to be honest, probably influencers are being undervalued right now. It's probably being seen as quite a lot of money individually, but it's definitely the impact it has. I know personally, I'm seeing when people comment about a software, when people comment about a solution, I'm researching it, especially if it's someone that I respect 100%. And someone I like to follow their opinions on. So it's a huge thing. So completely agree on that. Last question, bonus question. So the $100 credit, since starting B2B Rizz, maybe you've got this, but there's $100 credit or euro or pound, whatever, when you start a new business for LinkedIn ads. What would you do with it?
Probably thought leader ads, but thought leader ads.
100% agree.
Yeah.
It's the only way to go. It's the only way to go.
Yeah.
I think it's been a nice avenue to actually allow people to, it's lowered the barrier to entry for a lot of people with LinkedIn, because you can get a lot done with quite a small amount of budget. So yeah.
100%. Yeah. And you pair that with I've tested this a couple times. I don't have good data on it, but I'll test, if I think a post can do good organically, right? If you add the as a thought leader ad at the same time, right, you can do it right when you post it, or a minute after, whatever it is. And so you start getting this little juice as it's organically getting reach. Again, not that much data, but it seems like every single time those do really well, because it kind of combines the organic and the paid reach behind it.
Yeah. And
it gives you a bunch of impressions engagement. It's really interesting.
That is very interesting, because I've always wondered about the first hour of a post, whereas the first hour of a post, you get the initial juice and it kind of nearly decides how far the post is going to go. I know there is a long tail of LinkedIn, but it has a huge impact. So is it that specifically you're boosting the first hour, or is it just you feel there's something going on that boosts it as a whole?
So my hypothesis is that there's some psychology behind it too. Cause so to your point, you get that first hour, or and obviously it trickles out depending on how it does, but you get that organic boost. But if you add the paid to it, so it gets more impressions or more engagement, it gives it more engagement. Now, I don't think LinkedIn's actually looking at those numbers. I think it's probably separating the two of the paid versus not. But as a person looking at the feed and you see more engagement on a post, you're more likely to stop and be like, oh, that obviously hit for some reason, especially if you know the person or whatever it is. So I think it stops people from actually scrolling because it has more engagement and it makes it feel like there's a party going on or comments or whatever it is. And then they start, engaging with it, which gives it more organic boosts and then just keeps going. That's my hypothesis. Don't know. It's a hypothesis.
Worth a test though. This is what so what you're saying, just to summarize for people, is thought leader ad. So post and then thought leader ad straight away within.
Yep. So you put like a couple, I put a lot behind it too. You can get you can put the bid pretty low CPMs. Obviously just make sure it's the right people and just give it a little bit of boost, a couple of extra impressions, right? You just give it a little bit of boost to kind of get it to the point where it's like the LinkedIn decides, all right, this way or this way, which one way is going to be less reach, one's going to be better. And every time I've tried it, and this is only like 4 or 5 times, it gives it that good boost. Just, I think there's more engagement. Now, it's not to say that it wouldn't have before. I don't know. We'll never know. Yeah. But it's interesting.
A little bit of boost. On that note.
Just a little bit. That's all you need. Just a little guy.
All right, nice one. On that note, Tim, thank you very much. There's a lot to go away with. I hope to speak to you again, but I really appreciate you coming on, and thanks to everyone for watching.
See ya.